Minister Cormann, thanks so much for your time. Some explosive claims last night on the 60 Minutes program. This is quite extraordinary, isn't it?
Well, look, I mean, they're very serious allegations, and I mean, the Director General of ASIO released a statement last night. ASIO was obviously aware of the allegations and is investigating.
This takes the suggestion of foreign interference attempts to a whole new level, though.
Well, look, I mean, I think it's important that we do not get ahead of ourselves. I mean, they are very serious allegations. We are taking them seriously, and investigations are continuing. But by the same token, I think we need to let those processes take their course before we jump to ultimate judgments.
But for a foreign government to make this sort of attempt, if it is proven, would be hard to imagine, I think, for most Australians watching this story unfold.
Look, I mean, as a government, we have been very aware of the threat of foreign interference, and we've taken strong action. I mean, we've put in place the first counter-foreign interference coordinator. We've also, in the lead-up to the election, established the Electoral Integrity Assurance Task Force led by the Electoral Commission to ensure that there was no foreign interference in our electoral process. So we're very mindful of the need to protect Australians and our institutions from foreign interference. It is a real and present danger, and we've been saying that for some time. But by the same token, in relation to what are very serious allegations aired yesterday, we do need to let the proper investigations take their course.
In parallel to this, we've got someone claiming, Wang Lijiang, claiming to be a former Chinese spy seeking asylum. So this is a multifaceted story right now that the agencies are having to manage. Do you think that this individual should be granted protection?
Well, I mean, it's not a judgment for me to make. I mean, obviously that is a judgment that will be made after the claims that are being made have been properly assessed and verified, and proper judgments are made consistent with our laws. So, I'm not involved in those processes. Ultimately, that is a judgment for those to make that have been given that job under our laws.
The agencies are taking the claims seriously?
Well, the agencies are assessing the claims that are being made, and of course, I mean, they're working their way through all of that is in front of them.
It's an interesting challenge for you as Finance Minister and others like the Trade Minister, given you're trying to engage with the Chinese and build on that economic relationship, yet we're seeing these various issues having to be managed. One would think that the authorities in Beijing wouldn't be pleased if this individual were to be granted asylum.
Well, look, I mean, we do want a positive and constructive relationship with China. We want the best possible relationship with China that we can have. By the same token, where there are instances of, bad behaviour or issues to be dealt with, we will call them out and we will deal with them. I mean, that is what is done between sovereign nations, and that is certainly what, from our point of view, we will continue to do.
Well, they're still central to our budget, aren't they? And the strength of our economy. We know the mid-year budget update's coming up in December. Our relationship with China remains pivotal in that sense.
Well, we have an important economic relationship with China. We have an important overall relationship with China, of course. I mean, we are interested and committed to having a constructive relationship, the best possible relationship, but by the same token, it has to be a relationship between sovereign nations, and we will continue to call out any issues and deal with any issues even as they arise.
On the other local legislation, the Medivac repeal, it looks like Jackie Lambie is going to back the government on this. Is that your sense of things?
Look, I'm not going to speak on behalf of any crossbench senator. I never do that. I let them speak for themselves. The government believes that this legislation needs to be repealed. It was a very bad decision by Labor earlier this year to push that through the Parliament. It has weakened our border protection arrangements, and it has effectively outsourced our migration program to advocates who also happen to be doctors. I mean, there was capacity for medical transfers before that legislation. There will be capacity for medical transfers where that is appropriate after the Medivac bill has been repealed. But at the moment, it presents an absolutely unacceptable risk to our national security.
Anthony Albanese says that it hasn't led to the crisis that the government warned about, that there hasn't been an influx of boats. He's right about that.
Well, he's wrong to the extent that we've been forced to accept people that otherwise we wouldn't have accepted into the Australian community. And there's absolutely no reason why we should expose the Australian community to the level of risk and ongoing risk that Labor's Medivac legislation has exposed the Australian community to.
On the ensuring integrity bill, finally, again, Pauline Hanson indicating that, well, you've given her the amendments that she sought, so she should back it.
Well, again, I let crossbench senators talk for themselves. From our point of view, it's very important that we deal with the continued lawlessness by organisations which are imposing a cost on the economy, which are putting jobs at risk. Because, I mean, clearly court-imposed fines have not had an impact on some of these organisations, and so there needs to be a better sanction to ensure that, and to ensure compliance with our laws.
Can you understand why people would be cynical, though, about this when the government's targeting the unions, and yet we see corporate malfeasance all over the place at the moment?
Well, the Ensuring Integrity Bill does not target unions. It is focused on registered organisations. Most of them actually are employer organisations, and a minority of the organisations targeted are employee organisations. But essentially, I mean, the only unions that are concerned about this are those that are guilty of continued lawlessness and who are happily paying all of the fines for their breaches of the law, but who obviously can see that the Ensuring Integrity Bill will be more effective in dealing with their ongoing lawlessness.
But a union's not going to be deregistered for a paper mishap.
No. I mean, this is about. I mean, no. I mean, that's just a complete furphy that's being pursued by some. I mean, this is about dealing with serious, persistent lawlessness. And indeed, I mean, the CFMU has had about 16 million plus in fines imposed on them, and they just pay them, and it doesn't sort of seem to bother them. But this imposes a significant cost on the economy, a significant cost on taxpayers. It puts jobs at risk, and so that is why, as a government, we're committed to the rule of law. We want to ensure that these organisations work within the framework of the law.
And finally, it's been a big year for the coalition, the electoral win. It'd be a nice way to finish with a couple of parliamentary wins.
Well, look, I mean, every sitting week we continue to progress our agenda. We continue to implement our legislative reforms, and we just continue to do the same this fortnight.
Minister, thanks for your time.
Always good to talk to you.